I have Ensign Chekov and Mr. Sulu here, who are in this story, my new Star Trek fan fiction, with Mr. Spock, who is in danger. We're on the planet of Altiers right now. You can hear the Altiers birds up here, and we got a story for you. Ready to roll? Captain's log, stardate 3234.7. Helmsman Sulu and Ensign Chekov absconded with an Enterprise shuttle with Commander Spock and Nurse Chapel incapacitated in the rear. Both were tied at the wrists and ankles and bound to the respective seats and were alert but unable to release themselves from their bindings. The shuttlecraft was on final approach when Sulu contacted the Altiers Tower in an attempt to land. Altiers, this is Commander Sulu. Do you read? Sulu asked. He gave himself a promotion, not earned or deserved. Reread, Commander Sulu. May we ask what you are doing? We request permission to land, Sulu stated as fact. There was a brief pause before the tower replied. Request denied, the controller replied. Return to your ship or find another landing port. Sulu looked to Chekov and shook his head. What do you think? Sulu asked his co-pilot. We don't require permission. This thing almost lands itself, Chekov replied. Yes, I know, but we don't want to hit any traffic on the way down, Sulu stated. The shuttle has a collision warning system. We'll be fine, Chekov stated, waving off the warning like a fly buzzing around his head. Spock spoke up and said, the collision warning is just that, a warning. The system won't stop you from colliding with another shuttle or another spacecraft. If I wanted your advice, Vulcan, I'd ask for it, Sulu said, as rudely as he could. I don't want to die, Nurse Chapel said, squirming in her seat. Don't worry, your pretty little head, Sulu replied with a grin. He turned back to see Chapel trying to pull her binders off. Don't waste your time. Those are not coming off anytime soon. Sulu pressed the comm button and said to the space traffic controller, We're running out of fuel and we need to land immediately. Our scan says you have enough fuel for 8 hours, the controller replied. We advise you turn around or seek another landing port. You are not allowed to land at Altiers. That didn't work, Chekov said, frustrated. Just pick a spot and land. What are they going to do? It was then the shuttlecraft jolted and changed course. What in the hell was that? Chekov asked, holding on for dear life. Spock replied, They have you in a tractor beam. Sulu pressed the buttons on his console in an attempt to regain control of the shuttlecraft. Nothing he did changed his directions or gave him back control. Do something, Chekov yelled. I'm trying, Sulu replied. Think of something. You know as much about this piece of crap as I do. Spock again spoke up. Do as the controller stated and turn back to the Enterprise. You have no chance to land at Altiers, and your best chance to stay out of Starfleet prison is to return the shuttlecraft and your passengers. By now, Chapel was able to free her arms from her body and wrap her wrist bindings around Sulu's neck, pulling him back and restricting his windpipe. Sulu grasped at the bindings and pulled with all of his strength to free himself from the death grip. Chekov leaned over to assist Sulu, but was stopped when Spock used the Vulcan nerve pinch to incapacitate him. Sulu used all of his remaining strength to lean forward and press the command release button, disengaging the autopilot function. He passed out and slumped over onto Chekov, who was unconscious. Immediately, the tractor beam released, and the shuttlecraft pitched down, lifting both Spock and Chapel out of their seats. What's going on? Chapel screamed. The tractor beam automatically releases when the autopilot is disengaged. It's a safety feature built into the system, Spock replied. We're heading for the ground, Chapel yelled. Spock's legs were still bound, so it was difficult for him to lean forward and reach the control panel. Sulu and Chekov blocking him didn't help. Lean forward and bring up the command panel, Spock said, as calmly as he could. Command what? Chapel asked. I'm a nurse, not a shuttlecraft pilot. The gray button at the top of the display, on the far left. Press it now, Spock yelled. Chapel reached out but couldn't get to the button. She tried rocking back and forth until she grazed the button enough for the display to appear. I got it now. Now what? She asked. Do you see the prompt for altitude? Spock asked, trying to speak calmly. Chapel scanned the prompt, but couldn't find anything that said altitude. No, I can't find it, Chapel replied, almost screaming. Spock could see the ground approaching quickly through the main windshield. He knew he had only seconds to override the system. Push anything, any button you can reach. Chapel rocked forward and pressed the only buttons within her reach. Without warning, the shuttlecraft banked to the right and began a flat spin out of control. "We're not going to make it," Chapel yelled as she was pressed back into her seat. Within moments, the shuttlecraft impacted the ground and exploded into a ball of flames. All 4 members of the crew were instantly killed. The controller called for an emergency, and all flights were halted as the fire crews drove onto the runways to extinguish the fire. That was Mr. Sulu and Mr. Chekov out there to kill. Well, they weren't going to kill Spock, but that's what happened. This is a scene from a much larger story, which I didn't even write. I just wrote a scene. You can fill in the blanks yourself, but I don't have a nurse. See that? Hear that dog? That's an Altiers dog. We're on Altiers right now. And this garage right here is also an Altiers. But thank you for being here. Like and subscribe. If you want to hear more of these awesome Star Trek fan fictions, the best way to be alerted is to go ding, 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 and press the buttons so you'll be alerted every time I pop up a new one. I have a whole playlist just chock full of these things. You can spend a whole hour on your big screen TV just watching me babble these things out, you know. I put tons of work into them, and I don't know why, but thank you.